Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my walkthrough for Chrono Trigger for Nintendo DS. So upon completing the factory and acquiring Robo as a character, the very next chapter is The End of Time, which is actually, I think it's the shortest chapter in the entire game. Technically it's just like you talk with some characters and then you leave and that's it. So there's really nothing to it. However, upon getting to the End of Time, there's a bunch of side quests and stuff that open up to us. So that's actually what I covered in the last two videos, was doing a bunch of optional bosses, an optional dungeon area. I got a whole bunch of goodies and a whole bunch of items and stuff, and that's what I did for the last two videos. If you're interested in any of those side quests and stuff, then refer to the previous two videos. Otherwise, to continue on and move past the End of Time, all you have to do is enter the gate titled Medina Village 1000 AD. So as soon as you go through the gate, your chapter title will change to The Village of Magic, which encompasses everything here in Medina Village up until we get back to the main continent here in 1000 AD. So our goal is to continue on back towards civilization, and along the way we'll get some goodies as we're doing so. Now, that gate led us to apparently a gate that is inside the cabinet of this fiend's house, and as we try to leave, he expresses us to be careful because the fiends here are not very friendly towards humans. Not that we're still at peace with them now, apparently, humankind and the fiends are not fighting anymore. The war has ended over 400 years ago, but, you know, they still have prejudices and stuff like that, so just be careful and try not to step on anybody's toes. So before you move on too much, you should definitely head to the Elder's house just to the north, and in here there is multiple capsules/tabs that you should grab real quick. Upstairs on top of the dresser there is a magic capsule, so you should grab that, and then downstairs on the kitchen counter there's also a speed capsule, so you should totally grab those. Of the two of them, the speed capsule is definitely more valuable, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now, you can speak with all the fiends here in this house. What you'll find is that they're all talking about this other character named Ozzy here. This particular one is kind of a windbag who's just kind of like talking big about, he's always boasting and stuff like that, and he's apparently the ruler here, just sort of by unanimous decision. But he explains that his great ancestor was fighting in the war against the humans, and that he was allied with the Fiend Lord, who is Magus. So just something to bear in mind, that we are going to be fighting against the Ozzy ancestor in 600 AD later on in the game. Just kind of a quick little note about all that. So as far as the speed capsule, you can put them on various characters. I would recommend you put it on Robo or Luca. Would kind of be the best overall. As far as just because they have the lowest speed, so it makes the biggest benefit to have it on those characters. They just get more out of it. But of the two of them, I would say Robo is probably more valuable overall. Luca is generally speaking better at like regular fights, and then meanwhile, or just like fights in general in the game, and then meanwhile Robo is more of a boss killer. So that's kind of the thing to know about it. So if you're struggling with a boss down the road, Robo can be really, really good for that. So just something to think about. Now, if you enter the market, you'll find that you can't actually shop here at all because they won't let you. So if you try to beg to allow them for them to allow you to shop here, then what'll happen is then they will attack you, and the bodyguard here you can go ahead and defeat pretty easily. Otherwise, just smack the shopkeeper once and he has like no health at all. And he won't actually die, but he will just allow you to shop here. However, he keeps his prices crazy overpriced, so you can't actually afford anything here, or rather you really shouldn't. And by the way, just so you know, just about all the items here you can get other places, so don't worry about it too much. Technically it's available earlier here, so I suppose if you really want to farm for the money, you could buy things here. Totally not worth it though, so just kind of a fun little thing. Again, there's lots of little details like that in this game that I think is fun. Like the mechanics themselves like lend themselves to the story, and I think that's really cool. It's just a subtle little change, but it like totally makes you feel unwelcome here. I just like it. It just changes some numbers, that's it. But it totally makes it feel that way. So the same thing in the inn. If you speak with all the various fiends here, you'll see that they don't like you. If you plead to allow the innkeeper to allow you to rest here, and just like with the market, this will cause all the nearby fiends to attack you. The innkeeper himself is the lowest threat, so you should just ignore him until the end, but he gets smacked around just like 1 or 2 attacks and he's defeated, so it's not a big deal. But anyways, after that you can go ahead and stay at the inn if you want to. It is overpriced. It's not too bad though, so you can go ahead and do it if you really want to, but if you have the health for it, I'd recommend you just ignore this for now because we can go heal somewhere else later. Now before you leave, you should inspect the nearby forest ruins, which are to the north, and there's a chest there that has a mid-ether. That's actually all we can do for now. Just bear in mind the pyramid itself though, because we can't actually do anything with it yet. It's very iconic, but just remember the fact that there is a blue pyramid here, because this will come into play later, and there's something we can do with this later on in the game. Lastly, before you leave, you can optionally go to Medina Square here in the middle of the Village of Magic, where you'll find a statue of Magus and all of these fiends that are circling around it and chanting. So you can talk with the various fiends here, and they'll explain that apparently they all wish that Magus could have destroyed humanity 400 years ago, which was back in 600 AD. So Magus was apparently around in that time period, and he was attempting to reawaken Lavos. Now, as we know, Lavos is the one who eventually destroys the world, so this is definitely a connection for us, or a clue as far as like a lead on where to go to learn more about Lavos in general, but also just to know that Magus apparently has some kind of connection there, and he's very bad news bears. So we need to just keep that in mind, and we're going to continue on, and we will eventually face off against Magus here soon. Now, when we came out of the gate here in Medina Village, the friendly fiend there told us that we should head to the house to the west, where there is a old dude here, which is the only human on the continent. And if you come over here, you'll find Melchoir. This is the friendly dude who was back in the Millennial Fair back at the beginning of the game. So he apparently lives here, and he told us that he specialized in blades. So sure enough, you can buy a Crimson Blade from him if you want, which is an upgrade for Chrono. It's not really that much of an upgrade. I wouldn't buy any of the weapons, and I'll talk more about that in a second. The thing I think is interesting is the titanium vests. You can get those if you want. I actually already have my party equipped because I won them in the Arena of Ages, but buy those if you want to. I don't really think the weapons are super worth it because we're basically going to be focusing completely on magic damage for the next several chapters, actually, so I really don't think these upgrades are worth it because of that. Now, before you leave, Melchoir will tell you there is a shortcut back to Truce, which is our village, by going through the caves to the north. Now, some other little note is all the fiends are always weak to magic, so you should just use magic on all these guys. Now, as far as which characters to bring, I actually am trying to keep Marl in my party so I can guarantee that she's getting some XP because she's low. I actually made a mistake at this point. Because I went to the Arena of Ages, I did end up with a Workman's Wallet, which will make it so that you get gold instead of XP. I was planning on not having Robo in my party, and I forgot about it for a second, but if he's not in your party, if he's in your non-active party members, then he just doesn't gain XP when you level, but everybody else in your active party does. If he's in your active party, then nobody gets XP, so this was a big mistake on my part, and I didn't realize it at the time. But anyways, what I was trying to do is I was trying to have Marl in the party so that she leveled up because she's currently my lowest character. The other reason I have Robo in particular is Robo has some very low damage magic attacks, so he has his laser spin. Now, most of the time laser spin is not super great, but you can combine it with Chrono to make the supersonic spin. This hits all enemies on the screen, and if enemies are particularly weak to magic, it just murders them. It's just awful. They just die. So it's actually relatively efficient, kind of. It's more expensive than a lot of our other attacks we've been using so far, but if you have more than enough MP to support it, it's great. Luca is better suited for single target attacks, in particular for fire or napalm and stuff like that, or like little close range stuff. Guys that are in little clusters is kind of what she's focused on. Robo is sort of weird because he has single target physical attacks, or he has like AoE or full screen magic attacks is kind of what he has instead, which you haven't really seen much of that so far, but there are several points in the game where it's very useful. I think this cave is a great example of that, where it's very useful here. So to the south, we have another optional room. You don't have to go in there at all, and if you do go in there, there's two mandatory fights where you can't sneak past them, unfortunately, but they're easy enough. You just hit them with something magic and they're dead. Now, the item that this leads to, this chest contains a magic scarf. What a magic scarf does is it's +4 to magic, which, in particular, I think the most useful character to put that on for now is probably Marl, because what it does is each point of magic will increase the healing of aura by 5. So I actually gave her 8 magic tabs in the last video, a whole bunch of them, so that increases the healing of aura by 40. So if I give her the magic scarf as well, then that means it's another additional 20, which means she's healing for 60 more. That's a lot. She heals for like 97 to like 110 with what she was doing a little bit ago, but now 60 health on top of that is like, that's really good. But anyways, so that's just something you can do. I do think, like, of those different items, though, that I still prefer the speed belt on her. Just extra speed is just so good. Another thing you could do, too, especially for areas like this, is you could give the magic scarf to Robo. I know that's a weird, like, choice, or it seems odd at first, but if you're doing stuff like this, supersonic spin, the damage is based off of his magic stat. And Robo's magic stat is super low, so it actually, the funny thing about it is that it scales really well. All the characters that have really low stats where they have skills that scale with that, they actually give you a bigger multiplier. So instead of giving you, like in Marl's example, she has a lot of magic, and it gives her 5 more healing for each point of magic. Meanwhile, if you give magic to Robo, he gets something like 14 points of damage for every 1 point of magic. Does that make sense? So giving him 4 more magic is a much bigger boost than it would be on Marl. This particular fight, by the way, is activated by just the top right corner, right as you're getting out of that little narrow corridor. If you go just like up, so you're going towards the chest, that's that little spot the pressure plate that activates this fight. If you stay a little bit south and then swing wide, you can go towards this chest without ever actually activating that fight, so you don't have to fight them at all. Although, they're super easy, so I would just defeat them because it's just easy XP. Anyways, continuing on, one other quick comment about the magic scarf. Like I was saying, yes, you can put it on Robo, and that would give him more magic damage, which makes his laser spin do more damage, and thus increases the damage of supersonic spin as well. If you make it a dual tech with Chrono, though, it kills all these guys in one hit anyway, so I don't feel... There's no reason to increase Robo's magic stat if you are already accomplishing what you're trying to do. Does that make sense? Like, because it's killing everything anyway, there's no reason to increase his magic stat. Yes, it would make it do more damage, but that's unnecessary. So it's much more useful to have a more useful accessory in that slot, such as the Workman's Wallet that I have in there right now, which is like messing me up because now I'm not getting any XP. Oh no. Ooh, it did not work out in my favor. I was planning to swap that out when I entered this cave and I totally forgot, but now nobody's getting XP. The whole point of this was I was trying to give Marl some XP before the boss, but I totally messed that up. Anyways, once again, here's more combat, when the choice for this is, of course, Supersonic Spin again. You can use, like, a Flamethrower to hit multiple enemies at a time, and you'll probably kill most of these guys in one hit, although it is possible, like in this example, where Robo's standing, if that was Luca instead, she could Flamethrower through all three of those probably, if not just two. But regardless, that's an example of something you could do. Unfortunately, Flamethrower is starting to fall behind now. It just doesn't do as much damage. This particular fight you can avoid by just hanging really far to the right. Otherwise, you walk through the middle of the room, you will then initiate this one. I've been finding it very interesting as I've been working on this walkthrough. I mean, it's like anything else. You know, you do a book report or whatever, or, you know, you do a research paper and you learn about the subject that you're working on, you know? And so it's the same thing with this game, is that I feel like I'm pretty familiar with it, and I've played it through many times, but now that I'm actually sitting down and like actually looking at the dual tech list and what the character compositions I could possibly have, like what combination of characters would be best for each area, and I'm coming up with some interesting conclusions. Like this one, I was like, I actually think that Robo is the correct choice for this, and it turns out he's awesome for this. He's amazing. And it wasn't what I expected because his magic stat is so low, and I don't think laser spin is just a bad skill. So I was like, there's no way this is actually really good, is it? And it turns out it's awesome. And it just surprises me. Like, there's certain combinations that were more effective than they thought they would be. But that's how this whole game is. Like, every character has, like, things that are really good at it and things that are not so good at. So Robo has great magic damage in an area for this tier anyways, and then he has great physical single target is what he focuses on. Anyways, once you reach the Sparkly, go ahead and save and then use a shelter to restore your MP and stuff, and then swap out for Luca. Marl and Luca is a really good combination for this boss battle up ahead. This is also the part where I realized that I still had the Workman's Wallet on Robo, and it was like, oh man, I forgot. Oh well. So here we have the boss of Heckran Cave, whom is Heckran, who's apparently the owner of the cave. Now this guy is super resistant to physical, but he's vulnerable to magic, so you only want to use magic damage for the... Now, as a result, as far as healers, you can choose between either Marl or Robo. Now, between the two of them, I think Marl is superior. Also, she has the opportunity to do magic damage, so she's a good choice. As far as your third slot, once again, you have choices of either Luca or Robo, and again, I would say that Luca is the best choice for this, because Robo, like, he can do laser damage, but it's just not very good. He does have, like, some more heals and stuff like that. Now, in my particular example, because I gave a whole bunch of magic tabs to Marl, it still might actually be to my benefit to have Marl switch to being my offensive character and have her use ice, and then I could have Robo be my healer instead, and that would be a potential option. Also, then I have the opportunity of having, like, Marl and Robo doing Aura Beam instead, so that would be an AoE heal as opposed to Aura Whirl, so that's something else I could do as well. But yes, generally speaking, I would say the most effective party composition for this is definitely going to be Chrono, Marl, and Luca. Now, which means you're going to be using Star Lightning, Star Ice, and Star Fire. Otherwise, if you have the opportunity and both of them are pretty high health, then use Marl and Luca's dual tech Antipode Bomb. Would be the highest damage magic attack that you have available to you right now. The biggest thing to note for this boss is that he declares, like, go ahead, try an attack, see what it gets you, and usually his animation changes, so he's doing this little like holding his claw in front of him animation. He doesn't always do that though, so just if he says it, but then just don't attack him during that time. So if you attack him while he's getting ready to counterattack, then he'll counter with Water Wave / Water 2, and that does like almost 100 damage to your whole party, and that's awful. Now if that happens, go ahead and follow up with an Aura Whirl or an Aura Beam to heal up your whole party, and that would be the best way to take care of that. Otherwise, just in general, just reserve Marl for healing somebody, especially when he uses his higher damage attacks, such as Ya, Yes Indeed, or Narid Cyclone, and that would be, or Cyclone / Water. And that would be the biggest thing otherwise to do, because the problem is if he uses one of his really hard-hitting single-target damage attacks, and then he also counterattacks a split second later for 90, he does 90 damage, 2 of them in a row in quick succession, he could just wipe out Marl in particular, because she's the lowest HP at the moment. She's a low level. I was trying to level her in this cave before I got here, but I forgot that I had the Workman's Wallet still on Robo. Oops. But I would also say that I don't think you have to worry too much about using your multi-target heals, because a single target heal is fine, like especially when he's doing his defensive stats. You have like a little bit of time before he's going to start attacking again anyway, so it's just fine. But yeah, so I would just say just keep healing with one of your characters, have the other two focused on magic damage, don't attack during his defensive stance. That's all you really need to know. One sort of obscure problem to watch out for with this boss battle is the fact that when you queue up attacks, when you do multiple attacks in a row and you're like Q, 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 and then just have them do their thing, then what happens is your characters will do their animation, their attack animation, then it has a split like almost half-second time in between, and then the next character goes, then it has another half-second, then the next character goes, and enemies can attack in between that. So the reason that's important to note for this boss battle is because he could switch to using his defensive stance in between the attacks that you already queued up. Does that make sense? So it's better, especially if you're in wait, it's more practical to do it this way, but you tell one of your guys to use a magic attack, and then you have your second character like waiting on the text screen, but you haven't actually cast the ability yet. And that way you can wait for that split second for that to see the enemy move a little bit and see if he attacks or switches to his counter. If he does counter, then you just cancel out of using your tech ability. If he doesn't counter, then you're like, okay, I'm good to go. And then you can finally cast ice or whatever ability you're looking at. Anyway, it's just one of the little nuances of the gameplay mechanics where if you're not paying attention, you could get yourself killed. So before our big buddy kicks the bucket, then Heckran says that Lavos was created by Magus back in 600 AD, and he just wishes that it had been successful and stuff, and that humanity had blown up at that point. So this is a good hint on where we need to go next, because we're trying to figure out how to stop Lavos. Next, you want to go north and go into the whirlpool, which will spit us out back on the main continent of 1000 AD near Truce Village, and you will appear right next to Luca's house. You should head inside and go upstairs and speak with her mother, who is Lara. And by the way, it's not very obvious right now, they don't talk about it in this exact scene, but the reason that Lara is in a chair is because she can't walk, and that is because of an accident that happened with some of the inventions here in this house many years ago, and that was an absolutely horrifying, devastating event that happened with this family, and that kind of changed their lives forever. So anyways, just a little bit of tidbit as far as the lore of what's going on here. So Tavin just came in and gave her an apple because he's a nice husband and stuff. After he has spoken with his wife, you can go downstairs and speak with him to get the Tavin vest. This is an amazing chess piece that is for Luca only, and I would highly recommend you hang on to this for a while and wear it even after the armor starts not being as great. But anyways, this has great armor, gives her 2+ to speed, and also gives her extra resistance to fire. And now this tooltip right here says that it halves fire damage. I think that's actually mistaken. I seem to remember, maybe it's just that's what it was in the old Super Nintendo version, was that it reduced it by 90% instead. I could be mistaken about that, although, just as a funny side comment too, is Luca already passively has a 20% resistance to fire anyways. So even if it is 50%, I guess that gives her a total of 70% fire resistance, just flat, just in general, but whatever, I guess it doesn't really make much difference. Regardless, you want to go into Truce, and this time finally stop by the market. At long last, we can finally access this, and you want to speak with Fritz and his sister here. So Fritz was a character that we saw in Guardia Castle during the trial when we were in the prison, and he was strapped to a guillotine, and you could optionally release him, and he begs you to do so, but they don't give you any, explanation on why he's there or anything at the time, but he talks about it now. Anyways, if you optionally release him, then you'll find him here in the market in Truce Village in 1000 AD. Now that we finally made our way back here, we traveled all over the place, gone through multiple time periods, and now we're finally back in 1000 AD, back home at long last. So anyways, if you speak with Fritz, he'll then give you 10 mid-ethers, which is actually a pretty big upgrade. Those restore 30 MP, I think, off the top of my head, which is awesome. That's great for right now. That's like our whole MP pool right there. Also, fun fact, these things sell for 1,000 gold apiece, so if you don't want them for whatever reason, you could technically just sell them for 10,000 gold, that's a pretty good chunk of gold right there. But anyways, that's what you get for completing that side quest, which is awesome. Next, we can stop by Chrono's house optionally if you want to, and your mother will freak out when she sees you because apparently this makes sense. The last time she heard anything about us was we were scheduled for execution, and then she never saw us again, so she's definitely relieved to see us. I like how that just kind of ends there. There's no questions, Chrono just doesn't say anything. It's like, hey, Mom. Nod. I don't know. You think she'd be like, what's wrong with you? Shaking her shoulders or something. Anyways, one of the other things you can do as long as we're here is introduce your mother to the various characters we've acquired since then. And of course, now she already knows about Luca, but we just haven't introduced her yet because we haven't had the chance. So you can go ahead and do so now, as well as introduce her to Robo. I really like this little addition. It's just like a little lore thing. It's not required. You can only do it the one time. You can't do it multiple times or anything, but it's just a nice little detail. Like most games, if you have parents like this, they are like, hey son, hey daughter, whatever, and that's it. That's the extent of it, but this actually has a little bit of additional stuff, and I just think that's cool. Little details like this are something that Japan is really good for. JRPGs are famous for having just lots of really good dialogue and stuff like that, but it's these kind of little tricks, it's these kind of things that, little rewards that are just text, that make you feel good. It's something that games do sometimes, but JRPGs focus on it a lot, and this is a great example of that. So there are 2 different gates that we can unlock right now, and we want to upgrade, get both of them if you haven't gotten them yet. One of them is the one here in Lean Square, which will unlock another gate for us, and the other one is over in Guardia Forest, which will unlock the 2300 AD Banger Dome. Next thing that I want to point out too is, as long as we're here in Lean Square, you may see a sparkly over on the right telepad, and that's only if you're playing in New Game Plus. What this does is it does lead to the last boss of the game, to Lavos, so if you do that fight right now, then what'll happen is you will get the new ending. The endings for this game change depending on how far you've progressed in the story, so that particular ending is only available for this short time period. But yeah, if you're not in New Game Plus, then you don't have that option at all. I'm just pointing it out real quick for those of you who are doing your second playthrough of the game and collecting all the goodies as you go. So, next we're going to go ahead and leave. So I went to Lean Square, this activated another gate, and now I'm going to head all the way over to Guardia Forest. I actually did already unlock this by going through Banger Dome instead. I think this method is definitely easier and faster overall. However, I was getting more XP in the future back then, so that's why I was doing future back then. So that is why I already unlocked this one. But if you haven't done that yet, here's how you can get through here without any enemy encounters, and you can activate this gate without much trouble. So by going to these gates, what that will do is it will unlock other gates. Remember that originally when we took those gates, it took us to a different time period? Well, by going to either one of these gates now, we also gain access to those time periods they used to lead to, as well as gaining access to them at the end of time. So we can go either way, which is super nice. So by going to Guardia Forest 1000 AD and Lean Square 1000 AD, we also gain access to 2300 AD Banger Dome, as well as 600 AD Truce Canyon, which is our next objective. Now we have a whole bunch of gates here at the end of time. It's awesome. We can go all kinds of different places, which is great. So, we're actually going to go to 600 AD next to confront Magus, which is our next main objective, and it'll take a little bit to get there, but it is a journey and stuff, but we are on our way. We are making progress, and we have a lead. So that's actually the end of this video. If you enjoyed this and found it helpful, be sure to throw a like on it, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff, and stay tuned for more content just like this. As always, you guys are awesome. You have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.